Internal Revenue Service IRS tax news. IRS urges groups to share information to help those without permanent addresses get benefits, including economic impact payments, upcoming advanced child tax credit. IR 2021-116, May 19, 2021, Washington. The Internal Revenue Service today continued an ongoing effort to help those experiencing homelessness by reminding people who don't have a permanent address or a bank account that they may still qualify for stimulus payments and other credits, including the advanced child tax credit. The agency is also asking for help from groups that assist vulnerable or underserved people who may have difficulty getting a stimulus payment automatically. Filing a 2020 tax return, even if people don't have to, could put money in their pockets. So there's a link to even if people don't have to. So in other words, if people haven't got their economic impact payments round 1, round 2, or round 3, and they possibly could qualify for this advanced payment that's coming into play now with the child tax credit and possibly any other benefits from filing, then you want to make sure that you file the 2020 tax return. That's generally going to be the remedy. So remember how that works. If you haven't filed, or if someone hasn't received economic impact payment 1 or 2, that was actually tied to the 2020 tax return itself. So the remedy there is directly on the 2020 tax return in the form of a recovery rebate credit. So you file the 2020 tax return, calculate the actual recovery rebate credit. You should have access to free software to do that if income is below a certain threshold, and you can find that on the Irs Free File to do that. And then also for EIP 3, that one is not actually tied to 2020, but is tied to 2021. But by filing 2020, the IRS has the information to make the prepayment on the 2020 tax return. So even for the economic impact payment 3, if people have not received that, the remedy typically will be to file the 2020 tax return, even though there will be nothing related to EIP 3 on the 2020 tax return, because the IRS will then use that as a prepayment calculator to then send out, hopefully, EIP 3. Also, we have the child tax credit now. And once again, they're saying that this is going to be something that they increased for 2021. They also made more of it, if not all of it, I believe, refundable, so that I think this is my rationale for this, so that it will be easier for them to make the prepayment of that amount. So if you have a qualifying child, qualifying dependent, then and you would also still want to be filing the 2020 tax return for that advance payment, not because the advance payment will be something calculated on the 2020 tax return, but because that will give the information to the IRS to calculate the prepayment. They'll be able to use it to calculate what the prepayment should be, even though that advance payment will be tied to the 2021 tax return. So the bottom line is, for EIP round 1, 2, or 3, and this prepayments, as well as other benefits that could be there, including the earned income tax credits, then the remedy typically is to file the 2020 tax return at this point. So while the third round of economic impact payments, there's a link to the third round here, continue to be made automatically to most eligible people, the IRS can't issue a payment to eligible Americans when information about them isn't available in the tax agency's system. So they're still trying to reach out to those people. They know there's people out there, of course, that haven't filed. They don't file it. They haven't filed the tax return because they don't need to, but they're below a certain threshold, and possibly they can't get the information any other way, such as through Social Security payments or that kind of way, working with other agencies. So they're trying to reach out and see if they can get the information from those individuals, which would generally be from the filing of the tax return. And this is where I think the filing basically on the phone could actually help this area too, because to file the tax return, they do have access to the free file software typically, and apparently you can fill out a tax return basically with your phone with a mobile app using like a TurboTax or something like that, and so to be able to make that easier for people that are moving around or something like that, that might be something that is doable. It seems difficult to me to fill out the tax return on the phone, but if it's a fairly basic tax return, then and you get good at it, you might be able to help people out to do that. So, to help people experiencing homelessness, the rural poor, and other historically underserved groups, the IRS urges community groups, employers, and others to share information about economic impact payments, the upcoming advanced child tax credit, and other tax details to help more eligible people file a tax return so they can receive everything to which they're eligible. Advanced child tax credit payments begin soon. The IRS and the U.S. Department of the Treasury announced earlier this week that the first monthly payment of the expanded and newly advanceable child tax credit, the CTC, from the American Rescue Plan will be made on July 15th. That's July 15th. Roughly 39 million households, covering 88% of children in the United States, are slated to begin receiving monthly payments without any further action required. So the IRS and Treasury also announced the increased CTC child tax credit payments will be made on the 15th of each month unless the 15th falls on a weekend or holiday. So it looks like with this advanced CTC, remember what happens here is in 2021, they basically increased the amount of the child tax credit that you would normally get by filing the tax return in 2021, which usually would happen by April of 2022. But they made it refundable, and they're trying to issue at least part of it out as a prepayment now, and they're looking to do that on a monthly type of basis. So you actually get monthly payments based on that. So that's kind of the general idea, or at least my interpretation of it thus far. Families who receive the credit by direct deposit can plan their budgets around receipt of the benefit. Eligible families will receive a payment of up to $300 per month for each child under age 6 and up to $250 per month for each child age 6 and above. So I believe it goes up to age 17 total, but there's kind of this two-tiered thing. So if you got a child below 6, they're talking $300 a month, and above 6 to 17, looking $250. So the American Rescue Plan increased the maximum child credit for 2021 to $3,600 for children under the age of 6 and $3,000 per child for children between ages 6 and 17. So I believe it was $2,000 before, I believe. Now it's at the $3,600. The American Rescue Plan is projected, and well, $3,600, let me clarify, $3,600 for ages under the age of 6 and $3,000 per child for children between ages 6 and 17. The American Rescue Plan is projected to lift more than 5 million children out of poverty this year, cutting child poverty by more than half. Households covering more than 65 million children will receive the monthly CTC child tax credit payments through direct deposit, paper check, or debit card, and IRS and Treasury are committed to maximizing the use of direct deposit to ensure fast and secure delivery. While most taxpayers will not be required to take any action to receive their payments, Treasury and IRS will continue outreach efforts with partner organizations over the coming months to make more families aware of their eligibility. So a lot of people probably may not even know about it. They may just start, you might just start seeing people getting checks in their bank accounts. It's like, there's a deposit from the IRS. It's a prepayment, so you might want to, let people know about that because it'll be based on their prior tax return. No action will typically be needed. Obviously, if there is a change, note that this is going to be based on, they're going to have to do a prepayment based on 2020. And if 2020 wasn't filed, they'll have to base it on 2019. If there were any changes, there could be income level changes, thresholds, meaning if your income is above a certain threshold, there might be a phase-out situation. And also if there's any changes to dependents, like a child was born or something like that, then you'd have to let the IRS know about that. So for example, if you filed 2019 and then a child was born in 2020, then you'd want to file 2020 to let the IRS know of that, and hopefully they'll update the prepayment based on that. If someone was born in 2021, they're still kind of up in the air as to whether or not that there'll be some way to tell the IRS about that so that you can get access to the prepayment. If not, then of course you would have to wait until filing the tax return for 2021 in 2022. You wouldn't lose the benefit, but you might not get the prepayment in that situation. I have seen instances where the IRS seems like they have that on their radar, so they might look into that more. So, how to help? The IRS urges community groups, employers, and others to share information about the child tax credit, economic impact payment, and other key programs to help more eligible people file a tax return so they can receive everything to which they're eligible. IRS.gov has a variety of information and tools to help people. Economic impact payments, also known as stimulus payments, are different from most other tax benefits. People are eligible for the payments even if they have little or no income, and even if they don't usually file a tax return. This is true as long as they have a Social Security number and are not being supported by anyone else who can claim them as a dependent. For anyone who missed out on the first 2 rounds of payments, it's not too late. However, filing a 2020 tax return is the only way, if they're eligible, to get the money from the first or second payment now. So again, remedy, file 2020 tax return is the general answer most of the time. So people will need to claim the 2020 recovery rebate credit. There's a link to that here. Most people who don't usually file can use the Irs Free File. There's a link to that here to provide very basic information. There's even a special section on irs.gov that can help claiming the 2020 recovery rebate credit if you aren't required to file a tax return. There's a link to that here. When the individual answers the questions in Free File, they may also find that they're eligible for other tax credits, which may mean a bigger refund. That's like the Earned Income Tax Credit, Child Tax Credit. These are refundable credits, meaning even if your liability is 0, you might still get benefits from them. The IRS will process the tax return and issue a refund. The individual can expect 2 payments because the 2020 recovery rebate credit is paid as part of the tax refund. After the refund is issued, if they're eligible, they'll get another payment shortly afterward for the 3rd economic impact payment. So if you haven't gotten the 3 payments, the first 2 will be part of the refund calculation actually calculated on the tax return. In other words, the 3rd one should be processed later because the information on the 2020 tax return will give the information to the IRS to process that 3rd one, which is basically a prepayment of the 2021 tax return credit. So for the 3rd round of payments, people who are experiencing homelessness may qualify to receive $1,400 for themselves. If they are married or have eligible dependents, they can get an additional $1,400 for each of their family members. Filing a 2020 federal income tax return that provides very basic information about the person is something that can be done electronically using a smartphone or computer. When the IRS receives the return, it will automatically calculate and issue the economic impact payment to eligible individuals. People do not need a permanent address or bank account. People do not need a permanent address or a bank account. They don't need to have a job. For eligible individuals, the IRS will still issue the payment even if they haven't filed a tax return in years. Permanent or address not required. People can claim the recovery rebate credit or other credits or get a 3rd economic impact payment even if they don't have a permanent address. For example, someone experiencing homelessness may list the address as of a friend, relative, or trusted service provider such as a shelter, drop-in day center, or transitional housing program on the return filed with the IRS. So just make sure you have a trusted place that you can put the address on. If they are unable to choose direct deposit, a check or debit card for the tax refund and the 3rd economic impact payment can then be mailed to this address. For those with no bank account, many financial institutions will help a person lacking an account to open a low-cost or no-cost bank account. Individuals who open accounts will then have an account and routing number available if they file and request a direct deposit of the economic impact payment. That seems like the best option to me if possible, because then you can get it directly to your account. So if you can get a low cost or no cost bank account at the financial institutions, you can take a look at that, and then you can put the information on the tax return when you file using the Free File software in something like an Intuit or something, which is TurboTax or something like that. So visit the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, the FDIC website. There's a link to that here for details in both English and Spanish on opening an account online. Among other things, people can use the FDIC's Bank Find. There's a link to that. It's a tool to locate a nearby FDIC insured bank. In addition, Bank On, there's a link to that. Bank On The American Bankers Association, there's a link there. Independent Community Bankers of America, there's a link to that. And the National Credit Union Administration, there's a link there. They all have complied lists of the banks and credit unions that can open an account online. For veterans, see the Veterans Benefit Banking Program, the VBBP. There's a link to that here. For access to financial services at the participating banks, people with a prepaid debit card may be able to have their refund applied to the card. Many reloadable prepaid cards are mobile payment apps. Have account and routing numbers that can be provided to the IRS. Individuals would need to check with the financial institution to ensure the card can be used and to obtain the routing number and account number, which may be different from the card number. So workers experiencing homelessness can also receive the EITC, the Earned Income Tax Credit. In other words, a worker experiencing homelessness might also qualify for the Earned Income Tax Credit, the EITC. To get the credit, federal law requires that a worker live in the U.S. for more than half of the year and meet other requirements. This means living in a home in any of the 50 states or the District of Columbia. Therefore, individuals experiencing homelessness, including those who reside at one or more homeless shelters, can meet the requirement. More details on the Earned Income Tax Credit. For people experiencing homelessness who have a job, filing a return often carries an added bonus, getting a refund based on various tax benefits, especially the Earned Income Tax Credit for low and moderate income workers and working families. Like many other workers, some workers experiencing homelessness still qualify for the credit, even if they earned too little income during 2020 to owe tax. For 2020, the income limit is $15,820 for singles with no children, $21,710 for couples with no children. For couples with no children, the income limit is higher for people with children. For example, the limit is $50,594 for singles with 3 or more children, $56,844 for couples with 3 or more children. So in other words, the Earned Income Tax Credit goes up with income level to some degree and then goes back down. And it's also going to have different tiers based on the level of children, and filing status will be a factor between 0 and 3 children. So it's actually a fairly complex credit to calculate, but if you have tax software, it can be a lot easier to do, and there is free tax software that should be available to people that would qualify for the Earned Income Tax Credit, which you could find on irs.gov. Those who make less must also meet other eligibility requirements. Because it's a refundable credit, those who qualify and claim the credit could pay less federal tax, pay no tax, or even get a refund. The EITC, Earned Income Tax Credit, can put up to $6,660 into a worker's pocket. The amount varies depending upon the worker's income, filing status, and other factors. Obviously, that one would be kind of like the max. $6,660 would mean like 3. You'd have the optimal level of income, and you have 3 children generally would be that. But again, the tables are somewhat complex because it's kind of a, but software helps out with it, so check it out. The IRS recognizes that eligible workers experiencing homelessness often encourage unique challenges not faced by other people. To find out if they're eligible, people can use the EITC Assistant on irs.gov. There's a link to that here. You can also just use the free software, which might be the better way to go. But if you just want to look at that itself, you have that assistant tool. There's a link to that. It's available in both English and Spanish. File for free. The fastest and easiest way to claim the 2020 Recovery Rebate Credit and Earned Income Tax Credit, or to get the third economic impact payment, is to file a return electronically using Irs Free File. So there's a link to the free file. It'll take you to third-party software kind of areas. You can decide which software to use, something like a TurboTax or something like that, which should have a free file option if you meet the requirements, including having income below a certain threshold generally. People can use a smartphone or computer to visit irs.gov. Now, again, I wouldn't normally recommend filling out a tax return on a smartphone, but if you're in a situation where you're working with people or helping people out or doing your taxes and that's what you have access to is a smartphone, apparently you can do the tax, you could do the tax return and use these apps with the phone. So that could be useful. So, and that'd be a good skill to be able to use with people, I would assume, that need access to the filing, because software would be helpful for some of these items. So through the Free File system, anyone who qualifies for the EITC also qualifies to use brand name software to prepare and electronically file their return for free. The IRS urges anyone experiencing homelessness who has a smartphone or access to a computer to take advantage of these services. Direct deposit speeds payment. Direct deposit is the safest and fastest way to receive a refund and the third economic impact payment. People would need to include direct deposit information in their 2020 tax return to get their payment directly deposited. Anyone with a savings, checking, or brokerage account can choose to have their refund electronically deposited in that account. Taxpayers can also purchase U.S. savings bonds with their refund. Direct deposit is available even for people who file a paper tax return, but processing paper returns takes longer. So help spread the word. Employers can help by making their employees aware of the third economic impact payment 2020 recovery rebate credit and earned income tax and child tax credits, and by encouraging them to file for these benefits based on tax year 2020 rules. In addition, the American Rescue Plan, enacted in March 2021, expands the EITC, Earned Income Tax Credit, and the Child Tax Credit benefits for 2021 tax year. Some people will be able to get advance payments of the Child Tax Credit later this year. There is nothing those who qualify need to do at this point other than file the 2020 tax return. So file the 2020 tax return seems to be the theme that we've seen repeated in here. If there's one takeaway, I think it's to file the 2020 tax return. So the IRS also continues to work extensively with community groups across the country to get people to file tax returns and receive all the economic impact payments and credits they're entitled to. These efforts helped lead to more than 8 million people last year to submit their taxes who normally don't file. For more information, check out the outreach material available on irs.gov. There's a link to that outreach material here, as well as a whole lot of other links in this quite long for IRS news article, and there'll be a link to this in the description.